You're listening to Life Check Yourself with life coach, transformational leader, and dating and relationship badass, Marni Battista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important life and love issues you want to know about. So if you're ready to life check yourself in your relationships, your career, and the areas of your life that matter most to you, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
Check yourself with Jourdan Travers. Why your cravings for a high may be undermining your chance at happiness. Ladies, welcome to another episode of Life Check Yourself. I am very excited about today's guest. I say that every time, but it's only because I have the best guest ever. You're going to get to meet Jourdan Travers. She's a licensed clinical social worker, and she is a specialist in treating anxiety, mood, substance abuse and dependence, and personality disorders. She received her MSW from the University of Maryland and a BA in psychology from California State University, Northridge. She is a very well-respected psychotherapist. She's trained in CBT, DBT, trauma-informed care, mindfulness, psychoeducation. She worked at the very well-known Promises Treatment Center in Malibu Vista in Malibu, California, and the Lindner Center of Hope in Cincinnati, Ohio. And she is here to share with us her holistic approach to mental health treatment. And I just really think that you are going to get a ton of value because we've been talking a lot about how do we manage our emotions to create a result. And she is the queen of this. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that very kind introduction.
Well, I'm so impressed. So one question that I have, because I've shared this before in my experience. So I was sort of like a love addict with an eating disorder. Right. And so for me, my story was like, I would get skinny and then I would meet somebody and then I'd be like crazy. Then we'd break up and then I'd gain a bunch of weight. Right. And then I would start and that was my cycle. Right. It was very connected. Right. And I work with a lot of women who, and just because you have this addiction background, I'm like, I got to ask Jourdan about this. Tell me about how relationship and allowing ourselves to be intimate emotionally and physically. What's that relationship that you see between addiction, whether it's food, wine, shopping, work? Do you see that, or am I just like the only one?
No, it is. It does exist. It is a real thing. I think a really important question, a big part of therapy that often goes undiscussed is that it's about noticing patterns, which you shared, right? You recognize that you are in this pattern, this cycle. Many of us don't recognize these patterns, right? It's important to ask ourselves, okay, what are the months and the seasons that are most difficult for me? What are the sensations that have me reflexively reaching for a glass of wine or making an online purchase? What am I trying to numb, right? Because we all feel emotions differently in our body. And so that's a really great place to start, right? What is the discomfort? Where do I feel that? And what do I do when that is triggered or when that comes up and I'm aware of it?
So it sounds like if you reverse engineer it, I'm like super process oriented, the first thing one would have to do is just even notice or be curious about behaviors that they might be even connected to a feeling. Because I think that for some people, they tell themselves a story, or it's just in my family, we do this, or this is just what I do because I deserve it, because I work hard, or whatever it is. So what are some of the mistakes that people make that keep them stuck, either in not even noticing or just stuck in noticing?
I think, okay, well, that's a very good question. Stuck in noticing. Sometimes we feel like, okay, I have these aspects of myself that I don't like. These are my faults. and we all have them. None of us are perfect. Carl Jung calls those our shadow, or called them our shadow. And we have this fantasy, almost this false belief that if I just change these things about myself, then everything else that I want will come true, right? All of those hopes and dreams, or even in like a relationship, if I could just have changed this one thing, we would still be together. And the truth is that that is not reality, right? That does not work.
I feel like that's going to be a snippet on social media. That's so good, Jourdan. Okay. So talk more, like, let's elaborate. Cause I think I've been talking about this a lot lately.
It's addictive. It's an addictive fantasy, right? It's this notion of I can just change this and then everything will be fixed. But when we're saying that we're going to change these, whatever, one or two things or more, essentially what we're saying is I want to change myself, right? If I change these aspects of who I am, I'm inadvertently wanting to change who I am. And that's a moment to pause. Like, what is wrong with you, right? We are so accustomed to, I'm not perfect enough, I'm not thin enough, I'm not this, that, whatever, fill in the blank enough. And it's like, well, hold on. We often think that this feeling of unworthiness, of not being enough, that this is a core belief, right? That we learned this and we hold on to it, but actually it really is a narrative, right? We don't always feel that we're not enough. And that's worth exploring. Where are the moments in your life where you feel like you are not enough, right? When is that thought triggered? When does it come up? What are you doing? There's so much information in that question that it's worth reflecting on.
There's also so much freedom in that question, right? Because if I just say it's not that there's something wrong with me, right? There's just this story that I'm telling myself when I have these certain experiences that happen, then I can have an understanding where I think of it as like the intellectual, like that shadow voice, but the truth, right? Because I'll talk to clients all the time and they're like, I know it's irrational, right? That I don't trust myself in relationship when I'm like running a Fortune 500 company, right? Or I'm confident in a boardroom, but I'm not confident when I'm, online dating. And so it's a narrative, what you're saying, around a certain set of experiences. And those are the questions that you kind of want to dive into.
Absolutely. It's important issue. As humans, for better or worse, we are creatures of comfort. People might say, oh, I love change. And they're lying to you.
Yeah,
Nobody
exactly.
likes change in the middle of change, right? It's you like it after, right? But nobody likes when we're in the middle of it. It's uncomfortable. It brings up all this stuff. And oftentimes it's in our efforts to avoid change or to avoid discomfort that we end up creating a lot more of it in our lives.
Okay, that's another mic drop moment. Okay. I have to make a note because that's just so brilliant. But I want to go back really quickly to this idea because I don't want it to get lost. I don't want people avoid what you said before.
Oh, sure.
Which is that we have this fantasy that you said where we want to fix something and then we think that will sort of change our life. And I just want to say that I feel like when most of my work is focused or was focused like on being a dating coach per se, it's almost, and I take full responsibility for this, it's almost like I was perpetuating that myth, right? Like if I tell you guys who are listening, like, oh, when you meet your amazing guy, then your life is going to be perfect. But what I know from doing this for like 15 years is like that guy thing is just like a reflection of that not enoughness, or there's that piece inside. Right. The guy thing for you is the same thing as the job thing is for someone else, or the money thing, right? Or whatever it is that we think we're going to fix. So is there anything that you can just sort of like a question that people can ask themselves to really get clear? Is there something, now we'll connect it to avoiding, inside themselves or something they don't want to deal with that they keep focusing on these externals that they think is going to bring them that, mythical, peaceful, perfect life?
I think it goes back to acceptance, truly. Many of it, well, Sharon Salzberg famously says it with meditation, right? It's simple, but it's not easy. Same with acceptance. Sometimes we just dig our heels in the sand, right? What are the things about myself that I do not want to accept? Whether it's because I'm unwilling, it hurts, there's pain and anger around it, which, by the way, those are all very valid emotions. Those are valid stages in a cycle of grief, right? Grief is not sequential, even though that's what a lot of the literature shows. We think it's just this cycle, and I go through these stages and I check off that box and it's done. And that is not the case. Grief is messy. There's also a part of us that grieve a narrative, right? That loss, that grief is also, this did not turn out the way that I had expected. And what am I going to do with that? What happens now?
That is so interesting, because if you say that people are really uncomfortable with change, and then they're uncomfortable with like the aftermath of going through change, how do we I wouldn't even say get back to ourselves, because I think change is a catalyst for deepening into a different version or a higher version of ourselves. So how do we take it, the messiness, whether it's a breakup or, your empty nest or an illness, how do you deal with change and then rise from it?
I think too, so this is a little bit of a sidestep, but I think it's tangential, but also it's connected. Affirmations, they are helpful, they serve a purpose, and they can be incredibly useful. And if they feel too inflated or perhaps unrealistic, it's going to have no effect, right? So if I sit here and tell myself, oh, you're a rock star, you're going to, tour the world or whatever. No, my ego, my mind's like, no, that's false. And that is not going to happen, right? There's just this natural conflict. So it's okay. Well, what's a more realistic, a more probable, perhaps affirmation or thought that can help guide me? And I really like, this too shall pass and nothing lasts forever. I think those are really helpful kind of mantras. And life is painful, right? We cannot escape that. It's that pleasure pain principle. I mean, I think Dr. Annie Lemke in her book, Dopamine Nation, she does a really great job in articulating that and illustrating it, that we really want, it's we want to feel joy and we essentially want to be high, right? It's I want to feel joy, excitement, I want to indulge and just feel this sense of euphoria. Well, what happens is that, and we think, okay, I can just exist in this space. That's not realistic, right? That's not real life. And the more we chase that pleasure, it's that pleasure pain principle, the more unsatisfied, uncomfortable, discontent we're going to feel. Those emotions are the ones that we're going to experience more of if we're just chasing the high of, excitement.
Oh my God, I love this so much, because it's been really interesting. The experience. So you probably don't even know this about me because we just met, but in 2021, I sold my house. My husband and I decided we're going to sell everything and live in an RV for 10 months and go all around. And now we're doing this digital nomad thing. And I had this conversation with my husband just the other day, because in my vision for sort of this year, while exploring where I want to live, I was like, my goal is to be satisfied, right? Because it got really easy living in that RV, right? Doing this thing where you're like, I'm going to go here and I'm going to hike in this national park. And then I'm going to go here, right? And then it becomes this, and I think, so now I'm going to make this about relationship and dating, which is why people get caught up in swiping, right? Because you're right. And I really, my goal this year is how do I enjoy all these amazing things and also be super satisfied and fill up from the inside? And I think that in the parallel is, if I'm searching for the high and that's what I think it should be like with this elusive mythical man or woman that is my person, and I want to feel like that all the time, then it's really easy to just swipe and get excited and have like some conversation, maybe even never go out with someone, get someone else, be texting them. Can you talk about that as a example of this, like chasing the alleged false sense of happiness?
Yeah, I mean, it's seductive, isn't it? I mean, it's like, oh, I can just swipe and then there's this other person. And I like to mention it this way too. So I have patients or I have clients and friends, like people that you know, or I know, I should say, who will say, oh, I went on this date and I met this person and I feel like I've known them my whole life. And it's like, well, okay, many people don't realize that that's your projection, right? You are projecting your desire to find the one and the relationship on this person. And while you might feel like you've known them your whole life, the truth is you've only known them for 4+ hours, right? So
right.
It's what's going on, right? What are the emotions and the sensations you're wanting to avoid that have you reflexively chasing this next person, this next partner? And yes, relationships have changed and evolved. But it's also important to pause and ask ourselves, am I wanting realistic things from my partner, right? Nowadays, it's like, I want my partner to do everything, right? You have to be my best friend, an amazing cook, an incredible lover, all of these things. And it's like, hold on, wait a second. No one person can do all of that. That is not humanly possible. Right. So it's a moment for us to pause and reflect and say like, okay, well, what is, oftentimes I hear people say when they're talking about relationship, what to look for in a partner. Right. And I think before that, it's like, well, what do you want in a relationship? Like, what are you looking for in a partnership? That's a more important question initially. Then you could get into all those other, ideas and questions, but that is such an important one. I can't focus on that enough. Like, what do you want? Right? Because so many of us, that question is uncomfortable. You ask somebody, what is it that you want? Like, a lot of them are taken aback. What do you mean? What do I want? Right? Is it, I don't think about that. Or I think about the things that I should want, what society tells me I should want, or what mom and dad or brother, sister, or whomever in my life tells me I should want. It's like, well, forget about that. What do you want?
I find that when I ask someone, when I'm first meeting them, and I say, so, what would you want? They'll be like, well, I don't know, but, and then they go into the list of characteristics.
Oh yeah. The good old characteristic traits.
Right. And they're usually the opposite of the last relationship that went wrong. So it's like, they're just sort of like running away from or trying to like get away from something rather than like looking at what do I really need? What do I really want? What can I create? There's like, well, I know I don't want that. Right. Which, is in some ways, I think it's not dealing with the reasons why you got those things in the beginning anyway, right? Like, what does that really mean that you want? If you don't want this, then what do you actually really want and really want to create? And so talk to me about, because you've said, you brought up avoidance a couple of times. And I know that when we work with people on our campus, literally it's the thing I think that will make someone either like, if they deal with their avoidance, they will move and get what they want. If they don't, they will stay in this liminal space of analysis paralysis, or just like working on themselves or numbing or coping or whatever. So how do you help people not avoid, to really deal with what's going on?
So it is nuanced because we all avoid in different ways. Some of us are more avoidant in like a relationship. Some of us are more avoidant when it comes to like work and performance. So it's okay, where are the areas that you feel like you're getting stuck or that there isn't much movement, and why that might be? Even with breakups, it's really seductive also to say like, it was this person, it was their fault. They're a narcissist, they're this, they're that, fill in the blank. And the truth is that nothing happens in isolation. We don't live in a vacuum.
And so good.
It's important for us to also sit with that question of, how did I contribute to this? Or am I attracted to emotionally unavailable partners or emotionally unavailable people? What am I trying to fix? How does that, why is that perhaps desirable for me unconsciously? Am I drawn to this type of person, or to this, kind of stagnant of this feeling like I can't move forward? I liken it also to, a good example is like with weight loss, because many people come in, and I say this because like Lindner Center of Hope was really focused and is very focused on eating disorders. It's easy to say for somebody who has difficulty, let's say, wanting to lose weight, oh, just diet and exercise. That's it. That's all you do. But the truth is, it's so much more than that, right? What are the thoughts and the behaviors that propel you to engage in perhaps, problematic eating, or just feeling this sense of, I can't, right? I can't make progress. I can't move. Those are also really important questions too.
And the thing I think that you've said so many times is like looking at patterns and asking questions, right? Like looking for patterns and asking questions. And I think that's like that waking up sort of thing, right? Is like, what is it that I need to see that I haven't been able to see before? What is it that I'm giving myself a permission to look at from a place of, self-compassion, obviously, of, that's keeping me stuck. And so if we go back to like what you were saying about like, if I choose not to avoid and I have to go through a change and I need to, get to that other side, how do you inspire your patients, your clients to be courageous, right? So like to make that first bold move? Is it like connecting to like your a vision? Is it like self-talk? Like what's your kind of secret ninja hack to get into action? There probably is no ninja hack.
No, unfortunately, there's no ninja hack, but oftentimes our difficulty, or what we feel our inability to take action or to move beyond that whole paralysis analysis, it's this fear of pain, this fear of, I'm going to make a mistake, I'm going to mess up. And it's just kind of putting that out there. Absolutely. That will definitely happen. You will make mistakes. You will mess up, just like every single one of us. Welcome to being human. It was in the fine print that we didn't read when we decided to come into this world. It's like, well, here we are. It is what it is, and oftentimes even with acceptance, right? I really like that saying, it is what it is. It's not this, mic drop, I'm going to be, petulant or belligerent of like, oh, I can do this because it is what it is. No, this is the situation. Right? It is what it is. Realistically, I cannot change anything I'm not willing to accept, right? I'm not willing to see is happening, right? It is what it is. This is where you are at this moment. I don't have to like it. I don't have to condone it. I don't have to want more of it, but can I accept this is this situation? Can I remove my emotion from it for a second? And emotions aren't bad. I want to put that out there. It's not running away from emotions. No, it's okay. What is the situation? Let me look at the facts. And then love that. Go from there. Yeah.
I always say data, not drama, like if you can just look at like what's going on. And you talked before about the narrative, right? And so then I like life check myself, right? I'm like, okay, what's the meaning I'm making of this? What's the narrative? Or, all these things that you're talking about, Jourdan, are just ways to kind of get your grown ass self back to the playing field so that you can make, decisions from a place of being like your highest self, your best self, rather than your patterned self, your avoidant self, your addicted self, your whatever, which, I mean, obviously it's all fun and games to sit here and talk about it on a podcast, but when you're going in it and through it, it's like,
it's not easy.
No, it's not
Yeah.
easy. And it's, and so the thing I want to ask you about next, kind of as we round the corner to the finish line here, is when you're in the fetal position, when you're like, why is this happening to me? How can you remember like the things that you're listening to this podcast? You're like, that's amazing. And maybe you wrote it down in your phone, right? Or you told 3 people, I heard this thing today. It was amazing, and then you're like in a moment and you're like, oh, I suck. Life sucks. Is there any way we can like remember or anchor to, or is there some practice that we need to do so we get better at it?
I know this might sound cliche because everybody talks about meditation, but it's true. It works. It helps. And you don't have to just sit there and breathe and that be that. I think a big also part of meditation, if you feel like you're struggling with it, because sometimes people feel like, oh, I'm just thinking too much and I'm thinking about these thoughts. Okay, can I shift, right? Instead of thinking about breathing, can I just feel myself breathe? And you don't have to have your eyes closed. I like to say a good first step is just do a body scan, right? Can I identify something for each one of my senses? Like, what am I experiencing for each one of my senses? That's really grounding. We've used it in psych hospitals many times. It really kind of helps us to orient ourselves to, okay, this is where I'm at. I am here now. And even if I don't want to be here now, this is where I'm at. And I think that grounding piece is really great. And then if you're upset, right? If you're like, oh, I'm in the thick of it, this sucks, I don't want to feel this. All right, what is it that you want to feel? Like, what is it that you're wanting to experience that you feel like is not happening for you, right? And what's coming up there, right? I know it's, again, Sharon Salzberg, it's simple. It's not easy, right? It sounds easy, but in practice, it can be incredibly challenging. I don't want to be dismissive of that.
Yeah, no, I think like that's where it takes some serious ovaries, like we have to really be, really, courageous, right? Like we have to be really brave, to come out of that, to just give ourselves that like little bit of remembering of who we are. And that I think for me, what helps is, I think Kristen Neff talks about, who is one of the foremost researchers of self-compassion. She talks about how like, and you said it too, like this is suffering is the human condition, right? Like that is it, right? And I don't even know where that whole thing is like, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Right. I learned that in the 12 steps maybe. But it's really like, okay, so if it's an option, then that means there's a choice.
That's right. Absolutely.
Right? And so like choice. And even if you do something like, remember that you subscribe to a podcast and just start putting it on, right? Like just something, it sounds like you can get back to remembering, you're in a video game and you could just stop playing it.
Yeah. Well, Marsha Linehan, she says it with, dialectical behavioral therapy. I think it's really great. You're experiencing something and there's some questions you can ask yourself, right? Is this something that I want to change, right? Can I change this right now? Can I walk away? Could I do something different? Can I say something different, right? Could I distract myself just to perhaps get through the emotional intensity, wait till that decreases a bit? Not that, oh, don't feel emotion. It's like, no, do you recognize when you're feeling heightened, like emotionally sensitive and things are coming up? That's not the best time to have like really in-depth, conversations and go there. It's like, okay, this is a lot. Maybe I just need to go for a walk. I need to play solitaire on my phone, whatever it is. And let's say I try all those things. I try to shift and make changes and I'm still feeling lousy. Okay, can I just accept that today is one of those days, right? Today is just a difficult day. And that's okay. That's part of the human condition. We will all have days that we feel like, oh, what a day. We can't avoid it. We can't avoid pain. And I see that with relationships too. Many people are, when they're looking for a partner and looking for the one and this person, oftentimes underneath that is, I don't want to experience the pain of a breakup or of a fight. And nothing lasts forever, even if the deadline is till death do you part, right? You are going to experience pain in that relationship. You are going to experience pain in that connection. And it's having a more realistic conversation about that and kind of maybe asking yourself, right, is this reasonable? Like where am I being reasonable, and perhaps where am I being unreasonable?
Because the truth is, you're gonna have pain when you're single. Also, it's just a different
Absolutely.
flavor, right? It's just a flavor. It's just a different flavor, you know. So I think this is so powerful. Well, you're amazing. Your patients are super lucky that they get to work with you. You can find out more about Jourdan in the show notes. And one little thing you might want to check out is therapytips.org, as well as awake-therapy.me, which are all connected here in the show notes. If you were going to sort of leave us from all the real life help you have given to people who struggle, and from the work you're doing, you're working with people who are like, you know, kind of sounds like throwing up their hands and they're like, I need some serious help. Like, what's that thread, that common thread that can really give people that thing they need to keep going? Just keep doing it one more day, keep asking the questions, keep moving forward with what it is that you want in your life.
That's a good question. So we all have different interventions or tools or skills that help. And some of us really feel like journaling helps. And it's true. Journaling is incredibly powerful and helpful and beneficial for so many reasons. But I like to say, right, if you really feel like I'm stuck on this thought, right, it's ruminating in my brain, it has nowhere to go, write it out. Like, truly just write it out. What is that negative thought, that negative feeling? Put pen to paper. And then I want you to also write the opposite down, right? And the facts of each, truly, like, write down the facts of each, because those negative thoughts can feel really salient to you, can feel truthful, even though they might not be, right? I want you to, what are the facts of each? And when we do that exercise, what research has shown and what I have seen in my own personal and clinical practice is it's much easier for us to find a more probable and realistic thought and feeling afterwards, right? We can kind of find a middle ground in between, right? It's okay, I had a place where I could just spew all of that negativity, that yuck, that whatever, and then the opposite. Okay, but what's more likely, right? What's more probable? What's more realistic? And kind of sit with that. We're much more open to seeing that and feeling that when we allow ourselves to let out the other stuff too.
Express yourself, girl.
Yes.
Oh my God, such great stuff. Thank you for being here. Ladies, if you love this show, you should definitely subscribe. You could share it with a friend. And if you want more, then make sure you go to Instagram and follow us at Dating with Dignity, and on TikTok at Marni Battista. And remember, whatever you do, there's been so many little tips here. Life check yourself. Do something, because you are amazing. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWD VIP, that's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes, and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to dwdvip.com. I'm Marni Battista, and let's talk soon.